Well, so I was 17 and I was nannying while going to school to be a teacher. And I cleaned the whole house and I made dinner, and then I got really bored. And they didn't have cable, and they had 2 videos. And one video was a documentary on Africa and some of the tragedies that are happening there. And as I watched this documentary, it just pulled on my heart so hard. I was just bawling. Like I was sitting there by myself in this person's living room just crying my eyes out. And so, I actually talked to my mom about it that week, and she calls me back several days later and she's like, hey, I just heard of this thing where you can go to Africa with young professionals and do an exposure trip where you just get to know the locals and kind of see what's going on there in person. And so that kind of seemed like a really a path that was let out for me. And so I walked on it, and it wasn't easy. I worked an extra job to make the money to go, and I had to do a lot to get there, but it seemed like it was just leading me, so I went for it. I've always loved kids. I wanted to be a teacher for a long time, and so I kind of was interested in the orphanage system and how does it work, and what is it really like to have that be your world. And so one of the women was named Nellie. And I ended up talking with her after everybody else went outside. And her situation was that she was running an orphanage completely just out of the kindness of her heart. And she also had children of her own. And so she would lock her children in her house with a padlock because the orphanage had an 8 out of 10 ratio of children with HIV. So she would go back and forth between the orphanage and her house and take care of kids all day. They have an operating system there where they only get enough money, or they only get money from the government if the child that's an orphan is proven to be an orphan, which means they need a birth certificate. And that's really, really rare. Because children are abandoned. Several children in this orphanage in particular were found in trash cans, and some were left on the porch of the orphanage, so they don't have any record. And so she had, I think it was 3 kids that were getting some income. So she was taking that income and buying food with it, and then alternating nights of which kid got to eat so that they were all alive, but barely. So, my question to her was, what is the hardest part about what you do? And she said, she's this really boisterous, happy woman, just so amazing and just laughing and she really calmed down, and, she said every night I go to bed and children are crying because they're hungry. And then she just kind of got back together and pulled it all back in, and she just kind of, came back together and went about her day. And that was just her life. And I just thought I could do something about that. I live in the United States, and I could be that bridge that just gives her the tools she's looking for, just a bridge. I don't want to take over. I don't want to do it myself. I just want to be the bridge that allows her to take all that effort she's putting into these kids and be successful and sustainable. So, it was about a 5 or 6 year journey of talking with local people that run orphanages, and another trip back and interviewing orphanages all over. I ended up partnering in Meru, Kenya. And I'm working with a woman who runs an orphanage there, and we're doing tests kind of to see what works. So if they have two cows and partnerships with 3 neighbors that buy that milk, and then they have a rabbit hutch that has 1,200 rabbits and they breed at these amounts of time, then they can sell and have contracts with local motels to sell these rabbits as food. We're just kind of trying to create a system that's sustainable where they can be independent and successful. We're trying to also then bridge that gap of education, and on the American side, I mean, getting the education of cultural experience in Africa is just, it's priceless. And I've always learned way more than I could teach when I go there, you know, so, and I think that's the other side that a lot of people don't look at, is like, oh, we could teach them, but it's like, well, no, they can teach us. Like, it's just two different worlds, you know, and when they talk, it's magical.